Now let me tell you something, child. A man who stops learning is like a river that done dried up. Ain't nothing flowing, ain't nothing growing. This world don't sit still for nobody. It turn and it twist. And if you ain't moving with it, you get left setting in the dust, wondering where everybody else done gone.
Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. And congratulations, you are here and you are learning, and that is something to celebrate. But we also want to emphasize the importance of keeping up your learning and keeping up your studies with Python. Showing goals, what you can achieve at the end of your journey, is always going to be important. And today we're looking at building our own localized machine learning system to act as a call logging database to help filter some of the requests from the busy team. We'll be building it totally locally without any dependencies on paid subscriptions through to AI backend services. So not only are you learning, but you are saving money. So here we are, not exactly on my glorious command line, but in my PyCharm editor. And I have a CSV file. CSV file where I've just generated perhaps some questions and results from a call logging database. So you can see that we have an issue ID. We have then the issue description, which is really the problem, such as keyboard typing wrong characters, and then the resolution, change keyboard language. And then we've got different issues going through. But we're really working with possible resolutions of changing the keyboard, cleaning the fan, calling support, which is really the generic one, changing the mouse, checking permissions, and checking connection. So that's the CSV file. But if we go out and take a look at the script, we're using pandas to import the CSV file and create a data frame. And then most of the work is being done by the scientific learning kit. So they're the imports that we see. We can see that we're loading our CSV file. So this is being read into a data frame for pandas. And then we're printing out some of the sample data. We can check for missing values. And perhaps we can exclude those from our data set, but everything is up and running as far as my data set. And then we're really creating the issue and the resolution. So pulling out X and Y from the data frame. We can then go through and actually then start creating training and testing data, both for our issue description and the resolution. This is the main work of the ML mechanism here, but all of this is locally. For our pipeline, we're really going through and vectorizing or creating numerical representations of our text data. This is the way computers work. We're then looking at training our model. Once we've trained the model, then we can go through and make predictions. So this then becomes our test set, and we can then go through and see how we worked. We can then go through and print out our results, and then go through and start looking at new issues that weren't in the training data. If we want to, we can also loop round and actually then start putting in extra issues to test. So as I run the script, let's open this up a little bit. So we can see that we're just printing for information purposes some of our results, the top results. We can see we're not missing any data. The classification report is really useful. Here we're actually looking mainly at the precision and recall, and we can see then, well, out of our testing data, we were 100% correct on pretty much everything as we go through. So this is really good. We've got our predicted resolution for the new issue being change keyboard, which we know is going to be okay. But then let's try putting something as cannot access Google. Well, look at this, isn't too brilliant, isn't it? So it thinks it could be a permissions issue. But let's try cannot load web page. So this is better, check connection. And let's say cannot load intranet. So it's understanding terms, but it just didn't understand the cannot access Google. So this is where we can exit to finish my script. And we can go back into our CSV file and we can start adding more training data. So I can go through, I don't really need the ID, but I'm saying this is then ID 101, can't access Google. And if we can put this in multiple ways, then our training data is just that little bit better, isn't it? So check connection. We can then go through and paste this down a little bit. And change the words a little bit. So this is going to be 102 for the ID. And then we can say Google is down. And maybe we put another one in. Everybody always reports that the internet is down, don't they? So we can go through and say internet is down. And again, the more versions of this that we can put in, the better our training data is going to be. Let's run this again. And we can go through, and we're only interested now in the prompt at the bottom of the page. Internet is not responding. I've got a slight typo there. Let's go through and just tidy that up a little bit. And we can see now we've got check connection. But let's put Goofle is down. So again, a typo there, but it doesn't really matter. We're now checking connection. So this is all looking good. But what if we do something like I spill Coke on keyboard? So again, you can see we probably need to go through and add a little bit more training data. So to save time, I've already put a couple of entries in. Someone spilled Coke on the keyboard. Water was spilled on the keyboard. But let's go through and add a little bit more. So coffee spilled into keyboard. And then, of course, we want this to be replace keyboard. So as always, it's really good to try and put multiple versions of the same type of issue. But yeah, now when we go through and run our code, let's see how it's working now. So we can go through and add our prompt. Coke was spilled on keyboard. So replace keyboard. Let's try something else, maybe Pepsi, because we didn't have Pepsi in specifically, was spilled on keyboard. But it gets the idea from the words that we are using, so it's a close enough match. Tea was spilled on keyboard. And we can see then that we're getting replace keyboard. So now it really does seem that is working to a degree. Obviously, the more variations of the words could be better, but mouse not working, change mouse. So just looking at some of the other issues, but this now seems to be working quite well and is a free solution.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.